And to be clear, we did not receive total cooperation in this investigation. In fact, we encountered many challenges getting access to relevant documents and information from the very beginning of the engagement. We do not have subpoena power as an independent investigative team, which would have allowed us to obtain materials and cooperation from individuals. The village's personnel policies do not require cooperation with internal investigation. That could prove to be a challenge in this circumstance. And the lack of cooperation by some individuals led to delays, limited our abilities and scope of work, and ultimately limited the information that we were able to address in the course of this investigation. Now, there were many allegations that we received that Mayor Henyard ordered village personnel to simply stop responding to FOIA.
So guys, it's finally here, the report that we have all been waiting for. And Miss Tiffany Henyard may be exonerated, or there may be something in this report that finally brings this lady down for good. I mean, you got to give her credit for standing back up, because it doesn't matter how many times she gets booed out of a meeting or how many times she gets sued. Doesn't matter how many times the headlines say she's the worst mayor in America. She will still stand in front of a mic and tell you, I'm coming back. I'm going to be like the phoenix that rises from the ashes. I'm going to win by a landslide. And nothing seems to stop this lady. I mean, my goodness, all these lawsuits. There's been protests outside her mama's house. She's almost been evicted. And here she is, still standing tall, saying, hey, I got this. Write me in. Let me resume what I'm doing. So let's get into this report, and I want to hear your thoughts.
Now we're going to walk through and largely provide an update to the financial information that was presented back in August. And we've been provided records that cover the first 6 months of the village's fiscal year 2025. As of October 2024, the village's general fund, which is the fund that's used to account for the majority of the village's operations, remains in a net deficit position. However, the deficit position has decreased or improved from the information that was presented in August. And as of October 2024, the general fund's net deficit position is currently $2.4 million. The village's cash balance has remained generally the same since the information that was presented in August. As you can see from the chart, as of May 2024, the general fund had an unrestricted cash deficit of almost $5.7 million. As of October 24, that amount is a deficit of around $5.5 million. And this deficit includes the amount of held checks that the mayor discussed previously. Those are reflected in these deficit balances. Regarding those held checks, as we presented in August, since March of 2023, and nearly every month since then, a portion of the checks that were approved and printed have had to be held. As of June 18, 2024, this was 589 checks that totaled over $6 million, which were approved but had not yet been sent to vendors. Turning now to discuss the village's use of credit cards. As we discussed in the August presentation, we're aware of 6 different credit cards that have been in use by the village at various points in time from January 2021 through at least June of 2024. Since the August presentation, we did request updated credit card statements that would cover July 2024 through December 2024, but we did not receive any updated credit card records. As you can see from the chart, the use of credit cards steadily increased from calendar year 2021 through 2023. In 2023, the village spent over $775,000 on credit cards.
How much?
As the mayor earlier discussed, oftentimes credit card expenditures have no accompanying receipts. And this credit card statements alone provide limited information about the credit card purchases. Given this overall lack of available documentation, it is not possible for us to ascertain important information about the village's credit card use, such as who made the purchase, was it an approved purchase, and what was the government purpose. This type of additional information is necessary to perform a complete investigation of the credit card use and to draw any conclusion about any individual purchase. That being said, through our investigation, we did identify certain categories of expenses that stand out, which the village may wish to pursue additional information to further understand the nature of the charges. For example, from 2021 through June of 2024, village credit cards were used for over $171,000 in travel-related costs, things such as airfare, excess baggage fees, hotels, meals, rental cars. There are over $51,000 spent at local area restaurants, as well as expenditures at retailers such as Dick's Sporting Goods, Best Buy, Wayfair, Walgreens, Apple, and Walmart. Now, not all, some of these expenditures, but not all, are reflected on the electronic warrant lists that we were provided and reviewed. However, the level of detail in the description of what the purchase is for varies by purchase. Some purchases have very limited information, and the description is simply the name of the merchant, or a more vague description such as meals or donuts. Others provide more information, such as training accommodations or code enforcement lunch. One area of our investigation where we were able to obtain detailed purchase information relates to Amazon purchases. The vast majority of purchases made by the village on Amazon were paid for with village credit cards. From January 2021 through June of 2024, the village spent approximately $218,000 on purchase from Amazon using village credit cards, the largest spending of which occurred in 2023. Now, the vast majority of the purchases on Amazon do appear to be for routine items such as office supplies, office furniture, and supplies for the police department. And the Amazon order details show that these orders were delivered either to Village Hall or to the police department. Additionally, many of the largest purchases on Amazon, 3 of which we identified in the August presentation, were related to materials or supplies for the skating rink. This includes $5,099 for artificial ice tiles, $33,000 for artificial ice tiles, $5,600 artificial ice tiles, $4,700 artificial ice tiles, and then $3,700 for ice skates.
The various routine office supply and office furniture purchases simply do not appear to be in compliance with the village's purchasing policy as we described. There appears to be no centralized purchasing or inventory control as required in the purchasing policy. So while we were able to see that these various purchases were delivered either to Village Hall or to the police department, there is no tracking system for what happened to them after they arrived here. And while Janice Johnson was listed as the originator for a number of these purchases, what we saw in the Amazon records is that there were 9 other purchasing sources identified in the Amazon records. So lots of people were charging things and purchasing them from Amazon. And we similarly found no evidence that the purchases related to the ice rink that were done in 5 separate purchases totaling approximately $48,000, that they were done consistent with the purchasing policy either. For example, we were unable to find evidence that these purchases were done as a result of competitive bidding process, which an amount of that size would have been triggered by the purchasing policy, nor is there evidence that these particular purchases were presented to the board prior to approval.
Okay, guys, I want to hit pause for a second because I need to ask you a question. Did Lori Lightfoot, or anyone else for that matter, indicate that they would not have subpoena power to obtain the proper records to get to the bottom of all these charges? Did I overlook that, or is that a new thing that's just now coming out? I mean, it seems like an incredible expense to put on a literally bankrupt township if in fact they don't have the power to get down to the truth. I'm hoping we're not just going to hear more of what we already knew with just a few added details. However, I will point out, Miss Tiffany Henyard did disclose finally what that Amazon charge was, and Lori Lightfoot just confirmed it. So I hope there's more things that's confirmed or either wiped clear from the slate, so to speak, as we go forward with this. But if anyone recalls that being brought up, that they really did not have the power to get the information that they would need for this report, please let me know in the comments. Okay, thanks. Let's continue.
As you will see, one of the recommendations that we're making to the board is to institute a written policy for performing background checks of prospective village senior and key personnel. There are 3 personnel that we call out on this slide, and based on our investigation, these and other individuals either working for the village or proposed by Mayor Henyard to assume key roles have issues in their background that likely would be disqualifying if they had been properly vetted. We know that Henyard hired her boyfriend, Kamal Woods, to run a township youth program. His personnel file, such as it is, contain very little information to justify this hire. Fire department. After 2 years with no resolution of the contract, finally, in the fall of 2024, Legislative Council was able to reach a collective bargaining agreement with the fire department union, which a majority of the board approved over Mayor Henyard's objections. The village is currently in negotiations with the police department, but the challenge with that, negotiating that contract, is without audited financial statements. And remember, we said there's been no audit of the financial statements since fiscal year 2021. It's difficult for village negotiators to be able to project what revenues are going to be coming in so they know what a fair salary and compensation would be. The other consequences that we've seen over the course of Mayor Henyard's tenure is a significant uptick in litigation. According to court records maintained by the Legislative Council, 48 separate lawsuits have been filed against the village under Mayor Henyard's tenure. 12 pending matters relate to FOIA violations, and 8 pending matters by village vendors allege improper revocation or failure to renew business licenses. And you may have seen recent reporting that on Friday, Mayor Henyard herself was held in criminal contempt for failing to sign a liquor license for an existing business owner here in the village, despite being ordered by the court to do so multiple times. Those have costs. In 2024, the village's insurance coverage became at risk due to late or non-payment of fees. The village's premium financing company sought to avoid its contract with the village. And let me explain what that means. There is a finance company that fronts the money for the village's various insurance costs, and the village pays it back on a monthly basis. But because of non-payment, that finance company walked away from its responsibilities and said, we're not going to we're not going to finance any future funds to the village to pay its insurance. That created a bit of a crisis. The village's longtime third-party administrator, that's the entity that then pays claims that are made by people that trigger the insurance policies. That third-party administrator also walked away and refused to renew its agreement with the village, again, as a result of problems in payment. And then longtime insurance carriers. The village like most municipalities, has multiple insurance carriers that cover their insurance, particularly liability insurance. Many of those longtime carriers canceled in the spring of 2024 or declined to renew the village's policies. Next slide. Now, this came at a critical time. The renewal period for village insurance is early August of every year. Typically 60 days before that time, the insurance broker will start negotiating, renewing terms of coverage with the various insurers. You have the TPA walk away, which is known to the insurance companies covering the village. You have the finance company walk away, which is known to the village. And the fact that these other carriers decided not to renew, that also sent a ripple through the insurance market. As a result of the efforts of the insurance broker, he reached out to 36 different insurers, including 10 excess insurers and then 26 non-excess carriers. 5 carriers chose not to renew their coverage with the village. 13 carriers declined to quote coverage for the village, meaning they weren't even interested in providing a quote, and 1 carrier simply didn't respond. And of the excess carriers who provided a quote, they set their threshold for coverage very, very high. 2 set it at $25 million, 4 set it at 10, and 2 at 5, and 1 declined, again, to quote any coverage. Now, the village was eventually able to obtain coverage for the 2024-25 period. However, there were 2 important concessions that the village was compelled to make in order to make sure that it had insurance coverage from August of 2024 to August of 2025. As you can see from this slide, the village was compelled to pay more for less coverage. We have here a kind of side-by-side comparison of what the coverage was under general liability, law enforcement, public official, and auto liability. In the preceding year, the coverages were almost equal at $11 million. But as you can see, in the current coverage period, there's a significant decrease in the amount of insurance coverage that the village now has to handle whatever liability issues may come up. The other significant concession was that the insurance carriers refused to cover Mayor Henyard. As you can see in the third bullet, there's a quote directly from the insurance policy. The insurer covers all elected officials, provides that as a separate part of its coverage, but specifically in writing excluded any claim made against any insured which is brought by, on behalf of, or against the following entities or individuals, and that is Tiffany Henyard. And the emphasis here was in the original. This coverage exclusion regarding Mayor Henyard also applied not only to the general liability policy, but also the law enforcement policy. Now, there are implications for the village given the cancellation of coverage for Mayor Henyard during this coverage period. Mayor Henyard will have to pay for all defensive costs related to her out of pocket, or the village could decide on its own to pay for her coverage, but it won't be covered by the insurance carriers. Now, Mayor Henyard would then be responsible for any judgments, settlements, or attorney's fees rendered against her personally, separate from the village. And there's an open question as to whether or not Mayor Henyard will participate in litigation that she has to pay for herself, and what that would mean for the village if she simply defaults, meaning doesn't show up, doesn't participate in ongoing litigation. So the absence of coverage has significant implications for the village and for the taxpayers of the village of Dolton. Let's talk for a moment about Thornton Township. In the course of our investigation, we received a lot of information that there was significant use of Thornton Township funds to cover expenses for the benefit of the village of Dolton. Similar to the lack of cooperation in the village, personnel under the control of Mayor Supervisor Henyard, we face obstacles obtaining documents from Thornton Township. We therefore are not suggesting, we do not have a complete picture of a variety of the allegations against Mayor Henyard and others in connection with the operation of the township. Nonetheless, we received some information to determine that a similar pattern of financial operations existed at the township during Mayor Henyard's tenure. For example, credit card use. We were able to review records from May of 22 through October of 22, June of 23 through, January of 23 through June of 23, and January of 24 through June of 24. Obviously, not a complete set, but detailed records. Some of these records, excuse me, were heavily redacted. They look like the CIA put the documents through their censors. So it made analysis somewhat difficult. But we were able to decipher some of the records. There were multiple credit cards in use in Thornton Township, and the names of township employees specifically, such as Tony Sherman, Keith Freeman, Shelley Miles, Robert Hunt, Marsha Walker Brown, Tanika Hughes, William Moore, and others. In 2024, for example, based on those 6 months of records, monthly charges range from $88,000 a month to over $100,000 in many of those months. And there were a significant number of food purchases and other expenditures that frankly warrant further investigation as to whether or not there was a legitimate government purpose for those expenses. There was overlapping hiring and firing of township personnel. A number of witnesses that we interviewed indicated that within months of Tiffany Henyard becoming supervisor on March 3rd, 2022, a number of long-standing employees lost their jobs. We heard many allegations about political retaliation, cronyism, and that people were let go because they questioned the seeming elimination of hiring and purchasing norms. Efforts to verify these allegations, principally through FOIA requests, did not bear fruit, as the township often claimed no responsive documents or failed to address specific FOIAs. We received information of various allegations of political retaliation. You are all, by this point, well aware of Henyard's treatment of Township Assessor Cassandra Elston that included locking Elston out of township offices and then later accusing Elston of abandoning her job. All of those things is well documented. We won't go into details. We were able to verify that longtime township employee Dwayne Thrash has alleged in a lawsuit that he was fired from his job, not because of competence or insubordination issues, as were later put into his personnel file, but because of refused efforts by Henyard and Freeman to agree to a plan to effectively let Henyard take control of a local suburban school district on which Thrash was one of 3 members. The alleged plan included creating a paid employee role for Henyard, firing other employees, and terminating the relationship with an existing law firm and instead installing Henyard's chosen law firm. Can you guess? The Delgado firm. Thrash alleges that he would not agree to the plan and subsequently lost his Thornton Township employment in retaliation. Now, we have a number of recommendations that we are making to the trustees. I'm not going to spend time tonight going through those. The trustees have them. But suffice it to say, there are obvious things related to finance. There are obvious things related to personnel. And some of these things, as I indicated, the trustees have already started to embrace and implement, particularly with respect to putting guardrails around the finances of the village.
Maybe my expectations were too high because I really didn't feel like we got that much new with this report. Perhaps that's just me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did this report answer your questions? Were you as surprised as I to find out that Trustee Carmen may not have been hired if she had been vetted properly? And while I'm at it, I want to give a big shout out to the residents of Dolton. They have been active. They are participating in the city council meetings. They're fighting for change, and that's very important. There's some steps on the screen to help you do that. I hope that they will continue that effort because I still believe that Thornton Township is a long way from recovery. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.